Education is pivotal in the development of any nation. It's no surprise that nations strive hard to initiate quality educational policy that will bring lasting development. Welcome to What Matters on ANT International. Still, on the coronavirus pandemic, this week we dive into the online method being adopted by schools to cover up against the emergency created by the coronavirus and the school resumption for exit students. My name is Nneka Michael. Let's take a look at these reactions and what the people are saying about online learning.
Well, the online program has assisted the children to continue their learning. Otherwise, they will be playing at home without learning, and of course, which is not good for their education. So I think it has been beneficial to the children.
If you look at majority of the public schools, they are not connected online. And that's when you are deprived a lot of students, majority of students in this country, of learning education. Even some private schools don't have it. So what happened? It simply means that you are delaying the education, or simply means you are depriving of the right for education. And so online education is good, but it's only when we have the facility on ground. Number one, light is a problem. We don't have light everywhere. Second, what about the facility for internet and all these things that they need modems? Can some of these schools afford it?
Problem we have, especially in rural areas where the schools are closed, most of them don't have facilities, like, let's say, satellite to watch the program. Although NTA is almost very wide, but in the rural areas where we don't have, lights, and probably most of the children in rural areas don't even have, do not even have, some of them don't even have television to start with.
I don't really like the online study because I don't think, it's not every children that is so smart that can carry on with their online study. And not every children that has that laptop, big phones, even if the parents will even afford some little laptop, for how long would they buy the data to put on those programs on? So I don't really like that idea.
A lot has been said about this method of learning, but how are the students coping with the system?
It has never been a bleak time for students in Nigeria who are among the people affected by the coronavirus pandemic. Although it was a shock when the federal government announced the closure of all schools to curtail the spread of the virus. For Master Denzel Wabudu, a 14-year-old senior secondary school student staying at home during the COVID-19 pandemic, does not offer any good experience.
I feel tired at home because I love learning. So being locked down at home, I've been tired, I've not seen my friends, I've not been going to school, just stay at home all day, waking up and sleeping. So it has been boring for me and tiring. Our school did not provide any online teaching classes for us. So we have to do the manual way of studying, like reading.
Master Denzel has, however, taken his destiny into his hand.
I've been reading well, I've been preparing for my WAEC, because I know that it's going to be hard throughout this coronavirus, the spacing, the arrangement of candidates. I know that the WAEC is going to be hard, so we have to read so we can pass. I read a timetable. I don't mix two bulky subjects together in a day. The way I prepare my reading timetable, I put a bulky subject with an easier subject so that I know that it's time for me to read the both and understand the both well.
Unlike Master Denzel, Victoria Atuguka, a final year geology student, shares a different experience about her school.
It hasn't been easy because this is a totally new measure. The tests have been online also, and the schoolwork also has been online, where the school had to create a platform for us to be able to get the notes and the videos from our lecturers. But it has been nice, it has been sweet actually. Some have not. I have a lecturer in my department who but he has started giving us notes slowly due to the upcoming exams next week. His excuse was that he is not used to this new system, so we have to give him some time to adapt.
The new system has its challenges, but Victoria is optimistic they're surmountable, just like Denzel.
I, for one, I'm not someone that loads much data on my phone, but I have to do that now in order to get all my school notes. And it has really been expensive for me. And sometimes our school's website doesn't open regularly, so you have to keep trying and trying. So me, at most times, I actually download most of my notes during the night when the data is like free for me to use.
The optimism for success is high, but do they really have depth for the examination? We hope the few days for classroom rehearsal will bridge the missing gaps. The federal government of Nigeria has announced that exit schools should open for classes and examinations. Following these directives, many schools have opened, including having in place the COVID-19 facilities to keep students and teachers safe. How prepared are these schools?
The fear of the coronavirus led to the closure of all schools in Nigeria on the 19th of March 2020. Following the directives, some schools decided to offer online study for their students, including government schools, through the internet, radio, and television platforms. The federal government, after observing the virus, earlier decided that schools will not resume this year 2020. But the outcry that followed the government decision made the government to change its earlier statement and allowed school to resume for exit classes of primary 6, JSS3 and SS3 students.
We also gave them a template, a checklist of all the things we asked, principle of which is how the social distances will take place. Whether the schools are in a good sanitary condition, depending on the location and what facilities that are in the place. And if they are not, what we must do in order to make sure that they are in place. Then to check out if, for instance, they created the base we wanted in case any child, how we can react.
Due to this decision by the government, almost all the states have resumed school for exit classes.
I feel very happy that we are back in school and I'm well prepared for my work.
I'm really happy because we're finally back to school.
Our classes are ready. The FCT administration, Secondary Education Board, they have provided everything what it takes for the children to be safe and also the teachers.
Also, a large number of those schools have put in place the COVID-19 guideline facilities to mitigate any spread of the disease among the students.
We are prepared and the school have been cleared, have been fumigated.
We have a hall that can contain about 600 to 700 students. We put only 200 students for the purpose of this examination, so that there will be enough ventilation, there will be enough social distancing.
Apart from that, we are giving also these sanitizers, 2 sanitizers, and these face masks.
The school has placed facilities all around the school. They've also ensured that there is social distancing among students.
We also made sure that all the teaching and the non-teaching staff use their face masks together with the students.
Most of the topics have already been covered.
As important as this may be, the focus of this resumption will shift to the classroom where the students are hoping to start real-time learning again.
I'm giving a passage to read.
The pandemic came a week to the closing of the school, and so a lot has been done. All we need to do now with this reopening is to talk about revision.
Okay, this is the best time for them to write the examination because in a class, in a hall where you have 50 students, less than that, they have other classes empty. So even if it's one student per seat.
I'm 100% ready for the school.
resumption. I'll be reading so I can pass my junior WAEC.
The resumption is also going to be a relief to many teachers who have been at home since the school closure. This resumption may be just one that will lead to full resumption for all classes. That is, if at the end of the exams there is no record of coronavirus case in the schools.
You are watching What Matters on ANT International. What Matters comes your way after this break.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
Nigeria has been making progress with online learning since March 19, 2020, when the federal government closed all schools in the country. There is need to know how schools are managing the online learning.
Since the closure of schools on the 19th of March 2020 as a result of government directive to curtail the spread of coronavirus in the country, especially among school students, a large number of schools resorted to online studies for their students. While it has been a smooth run for many schools in Nigeria, others have not been able to effectively provide this method of learning to the students. However, there is need to find out how some of the schools in Nigeria are successfully operating the online studies. Mrs. Mary Musa, a proprietress and school administrator, has been in the profession for the past 35 years. Her school is not new to the use of internet for online learning.
When before we were shut down, we already had, a digital learning system in place. All our classrooms, were equipped with IP boards, and we're already doing some form of online teaching and learning. So it was easy for us to adapt to working from home and sending work to the children. So what my teachers started doing was to make videos, make slides and teaching videos, which we would now upload to the Google Classroom. We got all our children to open a Google Classroom account, and it's been working well, very well so far, though there are some challenges.
The effectiveness of online learning does not rest on the availability of internet facility, but on the residual knowledge possessed by the students. Although not all schools have been opportune to navigate through the murky waters of online learning method due to the deficiency of the teachers.
I think that is true to a large extent, especially since a lot of the schools, particularly government schools, do not have any form of digital training or learning. A lot of the teachers in government schools are not technology savvy, so it was a big challenge. But I will think that for a lot of private schools, and for the private schools what they are sought, their teachers were already tech savvy, and so it was easy for them to adapt.
The online learning seemed to have thrown up new challenges in managing students at home by others who in the past did not offer any assistance to the students.
Certainly. What I always say to my parents is that they are their children's first and best teacher. Most parents think, oh, the work should be done by only the teachers. No, parents are their children's first and best teacher. And if we put our mind to it, we'll find that it is easy, actually, following the guidelines of the teacher, for parents to work with their children. I do know that for parents who were working throughout the pandemic, who have been working throughout this period, it hasn't been easy, but we've been very encouraging, getting in touch with them personally, calling them up to find out how they're coping, and if they are able to work with the children, and if not, what we can do to help and how we can put them through. And to a large extent, a lot of the parents have found this very, very rewarding, because they've come to understand how we teach their children, how we work with their children, and how they can also improve the way they work with their children. And it's been very good, although for some it's been tough, and they've had to engage a home lesson teacher.
It has also not been able to resolve learning subjects that require practical approach.
For instance, like science, in our science class, some of the videos that we upload are actually a demonstration. Just like what you probably see on YouTube explaining, for instance, if you're talking about things that dissolve, you see the teachers performing the experiments, and then we give a project to the children, tell them to perform their own experiments and video themselves, send us the video on Google Meet, and the teachers will mark them, will correct and make corrections when necessary.
To provide conducive learning, parents and school owners dialogue has been introduced as well.
Being ahead in what you do makes you the best, and glad to know that Nigerian schools have navigated ahead of the challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic. Now, let's have Dr. Toka Joyce Aku speak to us on issues around online learning and what should be the focus when preparing one. Glad to have you, Dr. Toka. So how effective is this online study for pupils?
I would like to say that while some schools have been engaged in online studies since March, it's difficult at this point to actually gauge the effectiveness. It's still still early days, and people are still getting their heads around how it would work. Obviously, there are challenges with power outage, challenges with internet providers, and challenges with even data, getting data for teachers, parents as well. And then there's the issue of sustainability. It's true that some schools have gained some ground using the online study, but the reality is that there's still a lot of concern, a lot of issues that we need to grapple with, and then we can make a fair assessment and conclude as to whether it is effective or not.
And what is your assessment of the online learning? Do you think the students are getting the required learning from this online program?
Well, in terms of what they are supposed to get, teachers don't work in a vacuum. They work with a curriculum. So if the curriculum is being followed, the children will get what they are supposed to get. I'm thinking rather we should be looking at how the children respond, to online study, in terms of what the teachers give out and how the children respond. We would like to say that it's a challenge at the moment with the younger children. So whatever the teachers are giving out is still subject to, being received by the children. The online study for younger children is challenging. Their attention span is short, and their study is more hands-on, and it's difficult when you're doing online study to really have that online power of it going. And then for the older children, they are a bit more receptive. Whatever the teacher brings on board, they're able to grapple with it, talking about children in the upper primary, talking about children in the secondary school, and obviously the children in the tertiary institution.
And how do you think the early years pupil can be well taken care of?
It's a challenge that we need to do a little bit more research, a little bit more thinking outside the box, a little bit more innovation as to how to engage the children. Probably for the younger children in early years, we need to do shorter periods of study. We need to do probably less subjects. We need to bring in more innovation, more creativity in balancing out their lessons. So you can see with me that for the early years, it's going to be more thinking outside the box, really, to get them on board.
Since this is a new innovation, is it not too early to assess the students? Is it not too early to put them through a promotional examination?
My personal opinion, though, I speak for myself and from my assessment working with schools, I personally think it's a bit too early to be doing exams at this point in time. It's a bit too early to be doing exams at this point in time, given the fact that, like you said, it's a learning curve for the children and for the teachers, even for parents. So we should probably, do a little bit more, and then we can start talking assessments. But you see, we have in education what we call the tyranny of the curriculum, the tyranny of the timetable, where schools are rushing to meet set targets. And in doing that, sometimes we don't pay attention to, sitting back to review how effective and how something that we're doing impacts on, on the children. So personally, I am of the opinion that we should put exams aside for some time and let children really get the hang of it, let the teachers themselves get the hang of it, and then let parents, buy into it, because there is the issue of sustainability as well. How sustainable is online learning in the long term.
Some parents have complained that some teachers are not conversant with the online platform. What is your take?
Well, that is truth. As we know in life, you can't take people beyond where you are at yourself. That's to say, you can't give what you don't have. Many teachers at this point in time are grappling with the whole idea of online lesson delivery. And honestly speaking, it is impactful on the children, because a teacher who doesn't have the skill set in this COVID-19 era to deliver online lessons will stagnate the children. And there's competition in education, so nobody wants their children to be, left behind. Everybody wants their children to be front runners. So a school that has teachers who are not up to speed in terms of online lesson delivery may have no choice but to replace them.
Since the online program started, some students have not been able to participate due to lack of data and facilities. At the end, the students will still congregate with their colleagues to sit for the examination. So what is your fear about this exam?
We're all stakeholders in the education sector. We are parents, we are educators, we are government, we are all stakeholders. So my personal fear is mass failure. That's my personal fear. The children haven't had enough time. It would have made a little bit more sense for there to have been an extended period of revision in school. If the children were being called back to school, they ought to have been given a little bit more time to do their revisions in school and then, go on to write the exams. At this point, the notice is obviously short, and we may very well have a case of mass failure across board if care is not taken. That is the reality of what we are looking at the moment.
The general name is online studies. As an expert, what method would you suggest for schools?
I would say it's difficult to recommend one particular way of online study. It's not practicable to do that, because each of the approaches have their pros and their cons. We have people who do real-time lessons via Zoom or other applications. We have people who do lesson uploads through WhatsApp and Google Classroom. All of them have their pros and their cons. And then you will agree with me that given the fact that it's a new normal that we are dealing with, we have to look at what will work best in our climate.
Thank you. And what should be the focus for every online study?
Well, just off the top of my head, I think what should be considered is the ability to deliver that curriculum. Is it workable? Is it something that the teachers can deliver via technology? We need to look at what is practicable.
You've heard it from Dr. Abu that every online learning program must focus on delivering what is in the curriculum amongst other things. This is where we call it a day. What Matters comes your way next week on NTA International. I am Neka Michael.